everyone. Today I'd like to talk about how to use the spine to get power. Um, the first cells that form in a human mammal, the first ring of cells that form is the spine and the brain. And everything in our body works out from there. So the entire nervous system, the myofascial system, everything moves out from the spine and the brain. So to get real power out of the body, to get good health in the body, we need to be able to work and activate the spine. Important points to consider when we're doing this, first and foremost, is the head. And this is the problem that most people have, is that their head tends to do this and slope forwards. So they look like this. So to get the head to sit properly on the spine, in the classics it says raise from the crown of the head, but it's lifting the head up and sitting it back. A lot of people talk about tucking the chin in, but the problem with that is that when you tuck the chin, it tips the head forwards, and the other way is that the chin sticks out. So you need to bring the head straight. One of the ways that I've managed to do this and teach it more successfully is to look at this line from here that runs around here to this point in the occiput here. You basically want to push this point back to where that little keyhole at the base of the skull is. You need to push it back into there. I'd often teach it as putting a finger to the nose and then moving the nose back and away. But I found the best way of looking at it is if you think of like a computer disk and you put it here. So you've got like a plane of balance here, so that you can feel that once you get this correct and then push this back so that the skull sits on top of the spine, it's well balanced. And by being aware of this plane here, you can feel when it tips this way, when it tips this way, or this way. So you've got from this major point here along the cheekbones here through the lower ear to where the occiput on the base of the skull is, and this helps you to sit the head up there properly. Once you've got the head sitting on the atlas, the occiput on the atlas, so the head on the top of the spine, then every time you move the head, you activate the spine. And that becomes very important for our exercises. The second part is the tailbone. So what we really want to be able to do in our exercises is to bow the spine. And we need to feel every vertebrae bowing. So we need to connect the whole thing. You know, quite often they talk in Kung Fu of making 6 bows, 5. 4 of the bows being the arms and the legs. The fifth and the sixth are sort of the 2 bows you get into the spine, and it's making those 2 into 1 that a lot of people find very difficult. And it's very difficult often because the core in front of the spine is actually stiff or locked. So in our exercises, if we engage the skull first on the top of the spine, and then we tip the engaged spine backwards, and then tip the tailbone in the same direction backwards but upwards, so that the head and the tailbone are bowing towards each other, and then very, very gently make sure that we get every vertebrae and activate every single part of the spine. Then we can do this, so we can do this backwards, and we can do exactly the same forwards, and we need to pivot on the head from here. Most people let the head drop off the atlas and then they're just pulling on the soft tissue and nothing happens with the spine. So you need to make sure that you've got the spine engaged, both backwards and forwards by tipping from this point here, and the tailbone at the base, making it bow forwards and bow backwards. Then we need to do the same to the sides. So we sit the skull properly and tipping this way, but making the tailbone go in the same direction as the head, so the spine actually forms a proper bow And we do that side to side, and then we want to be able to twist the spine. And to be able to do that, again, we need to sit the head properly. And when the head gets to a 45-degree angle, you'll find that it starts to engage the spine from there. And then when you turn the head, you want to twist the spine right the way down to the base, so you get like a torsion where it's twisted and it wants to come back. Now these exercises of backwards, forwards, sideways and twisting are absolutely essential to us, because all the movements that we do, if we can actually use the spine, are always going to be very powerful. If you can imagine, normally if you tip to the side, backwards or forwards, the head drops off the spine. Quite a few people, when they're doing the exercises, will tip the head to the side or tip it backwards or tip it forwards, but they're only really doing the soft tissue here and just pulling. Whereas if you actually engage the spine, it's powerful. And if you look at the core muscles in the body, and all of the myofascia, the muscles and the fascia that come out from the spine. And when they want to get power in, for instance, say a punch or something like that, if you use a shoulder rolling movement in a punch, you will get more power. If you use the waist movement, you will get more power. But if you can twist the spine, even that tiny little bit, the power you get is absolutely immense. And when people talk about getting internal power, the same way as if, say for instance, you avoided a punch by moving to the side, if you just tip the body over, it just flops. But if you actually bow the spine as you tip, you want to spring back. If you bow the spine when you come backwards, you want to spring forwards. Okay, so the idea is you can either pluck the rigging of myofascia and just let it return, which will give you some power, but the moment that you move the spine, you pull the entire set of rigging and it wants to go back to its natural place. And that's where your real power comes from, and you remain connected and powerful. So even if you do lean to the left, lean to the right, backwards, forwards, you're still stable, you're still rooted. And it's like pulling a bow backwards. When you pull a bow backwards, the arrow wants to go and the bow wants to return to its natural shape. So whereas when you flop the body, you've got to work to get it back to where it was. But it wants to restore if you've used the spine. And as I say, you remain rooted and you remain powerful. So if you can do that, you'll get much more energy, and you're always strong. You're always strong all the time that you're moving. You're always powerful, always connected, and the body always wants to restore back to that point. And particularly that little bit of torsion, or that little bit of twist where the spine wants to go, releases an immense amount of power. And you know when you've got it right because you feel the rush of energy coming up the spine. I always get that feeling like my eyes want to pop, and my nose almost feels like it's going to burst. You get the energy build up and it just wants to go bang and let go. Okay, so proper activation of the spine. Always in good posture. Make sure you're carrying your spine balanced and correct.